Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Veterinary Business Podcast, your ultimate resource for developing a successful veterinary practice and career. I'm Dr. Peter Weinstein, one of the co-hosts of the Veterinary Business Podcast. On this podcast, we bring you insights and expertise from industry-leading doctors, experts, and thought leaders. We cover a wide range of topics, including practice management, marketing, finance, leadership, HR, technology, law, and much more. Whether you're a practicing veterinarian, a practice owner, practice manager, or a veterinary student studying to be a veterinarian, this podcast is tailored to help you navigate the unique challenges and opportunities in the business of veterinary medicine. Every listener of this podcast is welcome to visit the www.veterinarybusinessinstitute.com for additional resources and tools to support your growth. And you can subscribe to our podcast on all of the major podcast platforms, iTunes, YouTube Music, Spotify, and other popular podcast platforms. Now, today, I am so excited to welcome two special guests who I will probably mess up their names as we go through the day, but it's Dr. Andrea Schnuelle and Jacinthe Moreau. And our topic today is It Changed My Life. Now, how's that for a setup? Now, how do we deliver on how did it change my life? Dr. Andrea, Jacinthe, welcome to the show. I am so glad to have you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Well, so where is this podcast coming from? For over 20 years, I have been an advocate for transcription nurses in the exam rooms. I've been an advocate because veterinary medical record keeping is our bane and our boon. It protects our assets and it kicks our assets. And in research done in human healthcare, the time to write up medical records by doctors can be 2 to 3 hours per day or more. I would argue as a veterinarian that we routinely don't go home late at the end of the day because of emergencies. We go home late at the end of the day because we're trying to remember what we saw in the exam room at 8 o'clock in the morning and capture that in our medical record keeping. Now, I'm from the school of paper medical records, and obviously we have morphed into more digital medical records now in 2024. And as a result, we have new technologies, some amazing technologies, and that's what I want to focus on today with my two guests. So rather than me trying to tell you their life stories, I'm going to let them tell you briefly about their backgrounds, starting with Jacinthe. Please tell us a little bit about your background.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Veterinary business or the veterinary community has been all of my life. That's where I work, that's where I live and breathe, and that's really the place I love. And I started working for big pharma companies for many years in marketing position and sales and other functions. And I also later in life moved to a group of veterinary hospital, VCA. And there I had the chance of working with many doctors and learning how they work and what they do day in and day out to care for their patient. And I had the pleasure of being responsible for a special project when I was at VCA. So we developed the home delivery service, the wellness, program, and other novelties. And I came to realize that the time of veterinarian is very precious. As a mom of 4, I understand that every minute that you have in your day is very precious. And I also worked for VMG. And the idea of VETSKRIBE, my company, came from a VMG meeting where one of the Dr. John Allett, was talking about the way that he's practicing medicine with his assistant, Cindy, and that he's using Cindy as a scribe. That started the most animated conversation that I have witnessed in many years. The veterinarians around the table were all talking about the problem associated with scribing and how much they would love to have a real scribe in the room, but how price prohibitive that was. They were also talking about a virtual live scribe that can join in the room and type the notes and everything. And that gave me the idea of VETSKRIBE. And the next day I had a conversation with Dr. Hallett, and he said, I think there is a need for that, so let's go do it. So that's where the idea came from.
And just so the listeners understand the 1 degree of separation in veterinary medicine, my daughter, when she was a student at USC, worked for Jacinthe's husband, Serge, at VCA in the marketing department. So it is amazing how small this world is. And then more recently, Jacinthe introduced me to Dr. Andrea Schnuelle, who is a practitioner in Wisconsin. And Dr. Schnuelle, if you would take a moment and tell everybody a little bit about your background, that would be wonderful.
Thanks so much. So I graduated in 2015. So I've been doing small animal for about 8 years now. Most of my experience is in urgent care. And I recently this year did make a transition from a corporate setting to being an independent contractor relief veterinarian. So if anybody in Wisconsin is looking for relief, just Google my name, or my company's name is Lando Veterinary Relief. I have 2 stepkids. I have a 2.5-year-old, and I have 1 on the way. So I am just as tired as they come. I'm very passionate about, trying to make veterinarians' lives better. So that they enjoy being a veterinarian. That's really important to me because it makes me very sad when I hear about vets that don't like being a veterinarian. I think it's the best profession in the world. It's really cool that I get to do this job, and I hope that if I can just do something very small for all of us, it's to kind of make that work-life balance a little bit better. And that's why I'm here.
Well, thank you. And so I grew up in paper medical record world. My first or second job, I worked for a practice, and I would come in on Wednesdays or Thursdays I was off on Wednesdays, and my boss, who lived next door to the practice, would have taken the records home to write up the records that, the 20, 25, or 30 transactions he did the prior day. And of course, the next day, those records would not be there when I arrived, and cases would still be there, but the records weren't there. Or the records were there and the handwriting was unreadable, illegible. And I do think one of the things happens in vet school is they make your handwriting worse, that and getting older. So my days of medical record keeping were all on paper, and trying to figure out what I needed to capture as a veterinarian and what I needed to capture to meet the standards for the Practice Act and the state board were very challenging. So I'm originally from the paper era. Now, Andrea, may I call you Andrea?
Please do.
You're a different generation. Tell me about what they taught you in veterinary school and your first jobs out of school when it came down to medical record keeping.
Oh, you're asking me to think very, very far back. I'm not sure if I remember exactly what they taught me in vet school. I remember there was no dictation in vet school with all computerized records, but even my first job out of school, my first small animal job, had paper records, if you believe that. And everybody can relate to having, if you're not doing paper records, to having referring, records from other practices come in. And I don't know what they say half the time, so I can relate to the handwriting pain point. But mostly since my first job, it's been digital records, which is definitely an improvement, but I think we can improve even more upon that.
Did you find yourself spending a lot of time throughout the day in the practice management software, just keeping up with your records?
Oh yeah, always.
Yeah, sometimes it even took away from the ability to focus on the client, didn't it?
Yeah, and I've come across, even just this week, there was a medical director that I met that had a concern about other veterinarians, rushing to get out of the room so that they could finish their records real fast, and that's a big problem.
So just saying, you told a little bit about your story from the VMG meeting about the conversation that led you to create your company. Tell us a little bit about how that conversation morphed and the research that you did and what it took to start a company that acts as a support device for the veterinary profession. If you could give us a little bit more depth on on how you went from where you were to where you are now.
Yeah, I went from to being very excited after this conversation because I thought that the solution would be very helpful to the veterinary professional. So when we started, AI was not even a thing. So we started by doing dictation. And at the time, there was not even dictation on mobile devices. So to do dictation, you would use Dragon and other companies like that, but you needed to be seated at your computer. So it was fairly new. So we kind of draw the design and everything to develop the product. And we started with dictation only. We built an extensive veterinary dictionary, and we did a lot of testing because all of my years working with veterinarians, you cannot disappoint. And charting is very serious. So we really wanted to make sure that we would have high accuracy and good quality of the charting. So we developed all of that and worked really hard, and we were in pilot. And then AI became the new thing. And we had to reinvent ourselves and kind of like use the base that we had, which is very solid, but build on that. So we took our time. We really developed a solid AI platform. We did a lot of QA, and we just launched actually at the end of January this year, our AI solution. But we're extremely proud of what we have developed.
So you're a trendsetter, as some of the other companies that are out there, in terms of providing a resource or tool for veterinarians to do a better job of capturing their medical records and charting. Andrea, as a recent grad, and obviously somebody who's more tuned into technology, first of all, by the way, when I was in vet school, AI was artificial insemination. So it's a different discussion. But as a recent grad, how did you learn about these transcription devices, and what are your feelings about the use of transcription and artificial intelligence? And did you have any skepticism as you went through the process?
So I can't tell you how long I had tried to get someone to do my notes for me. For years and years, I was like, would you be interested in doing this? And no one really, took that bait, which is fine. I think that the reason why I started doing any sort of dictation was because I kind of came to this point of there was like a crisis where I was, I had my son and I was working full time, and we were so busy because it was an urgent care and we were just slammed like every day. And I was, balls to the wall from the time I walked in to the time I left, trying to get out on time, which is really important to me, as is to a lot of people. And I was like, well, I can't do this. I can't continue this way. So something has to change, or I need to go part-time. It was a big deal for me to even suggest going part-time because I've always really liked what I do. So, working is such a big part of my identity, and I like working full time. And so one of the suggestions that was made was to start dictating. So I actually started with Dragon, which was a huge life-changing. The improvement of the quality of my notes, the amount of information that got into there, and the speed at which I could do it was immense. So that's kind of how I started. I was not ever skeptical, I would say. I think that I kind of welcomed the change but I guess my point is that I don't want other people to come to a point of crisis for this change to happen, because it's not necessary. And I think, but who wants another thing to learn? Like, I understand that. Like, we don't, need another thing to kind of to struggle with and to have a learning curve with. But I'll tell you what, it is time well invested. It's not that long. The learning curve is not that long. It's a major improvement for most people, I should say.
In many ways, from what you're telling me, this service or services like it has saved your career to allow you to be home on time and work full time and continue your passion for veterinary medicine.
I think it saves the relationship with my career.
Right. Very cool. So on our call, we have a huge advocate, but Jacinthe, I got to believe, being a veterinarian and being a baby boomer veterinarian at that, that there are no shortage of skeptics and those who want to push back on the use of AI and transcription services. So what are some of the barriers or the issues that veterinarians are bringing to the fore when you talk to them about your services?
Interesting question. I would say that right now, the conversation that we have are more about answering questions. Veterinarians are very curious about AI and how charting with AI would change what they are doing. They are very curious about how could I fit that into my day of work? What would be the quality of the note? Would it be accurate? How quickly is it coming back? There is a lot of curiosity, and there is a recent AHA survey that was done, I think, just this January, and veterinarians are seeing the place of AI, not only in scribing, but in many different areas of the practice. And I feel that everybody is trying to find their way and how it would work for them. One of the barriers that I think we see is in the expectation. What can AI do for me and my notes? Some people seem to come to AI thinking that it will be an exact reflection of what they are doing today, which is not always the case. AI will listen to a conversation, disregard all of the chit chat and build the notes. And then the doctors, obviously, is not the narrator anymore of their note. They are more like the editor of their note. So it's a different job. You know, when you're narrating a book or when you're editing a book, it's a different job. So I feel that sometimes they expect that it will be exactly as their chart from last month. And then I start the AI and it will be the exact same thing this month. And it's not. So you have to put yourself into the skin of an editor and just like be flexible.
So I think there's a clarification in there that you said that I just want to repeat, which is basically the way your service works more specifically is it's not a verbatim word by word and ah and dead air conversation. It's an AI driven interpretation of the content that is being shared.
That's right. We also offer dictation, which is more the verbatim. So if someone really wants to dictate all of their notes after a case, that's more like word for words. So that's a possibility. And I just want to say that the AI also, we're very careful to not let our AI loose. So AI will not create hallucination, or it would once in a while. And that's why we need to have the veterinarians to really look back at all of the notes and make sure that everything is good. But we're trying to stay true to the conversation and not go outside of the conversation and not take some liberty, especially from a medical point of view.
I mean, ultimately, the doctor is ultimately responsible for what goes into the medical record. So I want to take some time with Andrea talking about how this works in her client experiences and how she integrates it into a visit. So from the time that you walk into a room and by the way, we'll do a mock-up of this a little bit later in terms of a demo, but when it comes down to it, Andrea, talk about how you use the process from start to finish in your day-to-day medical record keeping with just, say your 9 a.m. patient. How does it look from your standpoint?
So it kind of depends on, and please tell me if I'm answering this question correctly, but it kind of depends on what clinic I'm at, because some clinics are a little old school. So their clients are less accepting of like new technologies. So in those cases, I'll use the direct dictation. So like Jacinthe had described, there's direct dictation and then there's ambient listening. And I think there's benefits to both. And I really appreciate the flexibility that that the VETSKRIBE specifically does offer. So direct dictation would be me going into the exam room, doing my thing, leaving, going back to my desk, and then directly dictating. In those instances, you are kind of reliving the appointment twice, just like you would with regular traditional notes, because you're directly dictating all your physical exam. There's defaults for the normal body systems that you don't have to dictate. Your assessment and plan, you're speaking right to your phone. And then the ambient listening part, you do at some point, you do have to inform the clients that they're being recorded. Ideally, a CSR would be doing this before you even walk into the room. But sometimes, if the clinic isn't used to that, like sometimes I'll just be like, hey, I use a medical dictation service to help me with my medical record. Is it okay if I record our conversation? I have not had any pushback on that. I start my recording, I go through everything as normal. And then when I leave, I stop my recording. And that's basically it.
All right. Well, there's a couple of things in there that I look at very positively. Number one, by talking through your physical examination, you're giving a huge value add to the client. One of the things that as a veterinarian who's worked in organized veterinary medicine and with state boards, one of the more common complaints from pet owners is they never touched my pet. Well, by actually talking through the physical exam, you're giving a value add. You're using technology to capture the information, which very easily could fall out of your mind between a 9 a.m. appointment and a 23 other appointments at 5 p.m. when you have to go back and do it when you're running from room to room. And I think there's a huge value add. I mean, I'm assuming that it's capturing sufficient information for your medical records, and it's also not acting as a distraction to the client. Is there a good capture of the information that you want in there?
Yeah, I mean, I think we should all be talking through our exams anyway, because it's such big value added. But it's funny because it does help me remember to talk through everything, because otherwise the dictation won't pick it up to a certain extent. But we should definitely be talking through that exam, all the normals, descriptions of masses, and I do think that there's value added there, because it's useful for the client to know that you're noticing the things on their pet, and then also to know that those details are making it into the medical record.
Jacinthe, I want to jump to you for just 1 second. And it's great that you're using a phone to capture this and you carry the phone from room to room. 2 questions. Number one, could this be done through the laptop or desktop and put a speaker in the room? So it's not being done through the phone and it basically goes right to the website. The stuff is captured. So it's being used through a speaker into the software. And number 2 is, does it integrate with all the PIMS, practice management software?
Oh, good questions. Right now at VETSKRIBE, we are an app which is available on the phone and on a tablet. Many practices do have tablets, so that's not a problem. In about 4 weeks, we will also be desktop. And the trial that we have done, and by talking with some practices, many will not even need a microphone, just like the mic from the computer will be able to pick it up and should not be any problem. We actually filter through the noise, like dog barking, staff laughing, no problem at all. In terms of integration, we are not integrating with the PIMS. What we do is we pull the appointment from the PIMS, and we show the appointment in our app, so the veterinarian can just select the patient that they are seeing and start dictating. And then we have a service where we provide the upload to the PIMS, and we're PIMS agnostic, so we can upload to any PIMS, but it's not through a true integration.
Very cool. So Andrea, if you can think about it, how much time did it take before, when you were either typing or writing up medical records, versus now when it comes down to getting a transcription into the PIMS? I mean, is it like 30 minutes versus 3, or can you even give an idea of the time saving?
Kind of a loaded question, because when I was experiencing that crisis in urgent care, my notes really suffered. They were sad. I got minimal information, just what I needed to, for the next person to kind of know what was going on in the appointment. And I wasn't really greatly satisfied with my records, but after starting to dictate, I would say in that instance, I would say it was maybe about the same, maybe a little bit less, but I was so much happier with the information that I was able to get all the information that I really, really wanted. That, that type A, that little bit of OCD that a lot of veterinarians can relate to. I was able to appease that part of me. And I would say now, as a relief veterinarian, I'm doing more GP work. And if I was typing my notes, I would say easily 25% reduction in time taking notes.
And so the other thing that's pretty cool as a relief doctor is you can take this technology with you, and it's not dependent upon the hospital that you go to. So that's even cooler from that standpoint. So there's a multi-part question here. I mean, that's got to be wonderful, but are you finding the practice is saying to you, what the heck are you doing? And then at the end of the day saying, how do I get started with this?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's exciting for me, and this is not what I was expecting with relief work, but bringing the idea to different clinics without having like any skin in the game has been kind of satisfying to me. There was one vet recently that turned around. She was like, "What are you doing? It sounds cool as hell." And I was like, "That's amazing. It is." And I was able to kind of forward some information onto her, and they're going to take it from there. But it is perfect for me because there is that, at least in VETSKRIBE, and I can't speak to the other platforms, but there is a desktop that I can pull up on any computer, and I can just copy and paste my dictated transcribed notes, the final version, into whatever PIM system they're using. So it's perfect for veterinarians that maybe are working a corporate job, but they kind of bounce from clinic to clinic. It'll work for those people.
Jacinthe, and I've got a thought, because I'm looking at, it's pretty easy to capture the history or subjective. It's pretty easy to dictate through the objective or physical exam, and it's easy to capture the assessment. But then you're setting up a treatment plan. And one of the things that you want to do is be able to transfer that treatment plan from a verbal discussion into, let's say, an estimate, or into things that'll get done. Does the ambient capture and the service help create, or can it be used to help create estimates as well?
At this time, not with us. The plan, we're capturing the information really well. Sometimes a doctor will even quote the dollar amount to do a treatment, and everything is there. It's on our roadmap, but not available right now. But if you look at the plan section, the AI does a very good job at kind of understanding all the plan for that specific patient and everything related to it. So it's just one step away.
So, Andrew, from your standpoint, that's the kind of the one thing that would be great to have is if you dictate your treatment plan, it automatically creates the estimates, so that can be shared with the client pretty readily. I'm assuming that would be a really cool next step.
Anything that reduces my workload sounds great. And I mean,
So,
even just standing next to a tech and telling them what should be on an estimate is a huge time suck, So if we can delegate that task to something else or someone else, that's great.
you noted during our pre-call, and this is where the title came from for today's podcast, that this has been life-changing. Can you dive into that? You've done a little bit of superficially, but you have, first of all, you're a digital native, you're a Gen Y, you have a 2.5-year-old son by the name of Easton. So Easton, if you're in the room hearing your name, don't get all excited. But tell me why this has been life-changing for you.
For me, it had a lot to do with the quality and my satisfaction with my medical records, and then the speed at which I was able to get everything done. I felt like I had a little bit of breathing room in between patients. Like I just had a minute to reset before going into the next room. It felt a lot more civil. And this, I guess, is, me in the urgent care setting. I guess in relief, and it's mostly GP. I feel like I have a lunch period. I'm not staying late, to finish up notes, because that's, essential when you're doing relief and you're only there for one shift. And it kind of is going to be different for every person, but there's plenty of benefits to be realized. It really is life-changing, and I think it's for every individual to kind of figure out how that's going to be life-changing for them.
So Jacinthe, when you were putting this together, you were looking at it as a tool to help with medical records and transcription and collecting information. At any point in time, did you realize how much benefit there could be to the issues of burnout that the profession is dealing with? Did you put two and two together at that point in time, or has it just become, as we have conversations with clinicians like Dr. Schnuelle and others, how much it actually helps with the mental health component? Was mental health at all on the radar screen when you were putting this together?
Honestly, initially, not quite. I was more excited about this conversation and helping the veterinarians, but very, very quickly, when I started to look at the literature, especially on the human side, and looking at the burden of documentation, I quickly realized that, oh my God, if it's the same thing on the veterinary side, it would be very helpful. But I think that the aha moment for me was through conversation with our first client that were on pilots, doing a pilot with us. And they were telling me I was spending my evenings, like after putting them in bed, I would go back to my computer and work. And as a mom myself, I remember those days, and I was like, wow, that's a lot. You have your full day, then you're at home, but you're probably preoccupied thinking about your notes. And then you have to do that. I had other veterinarians that were telling me, I wake up in the middle of the night because my notes were not done and I'm in sweat and I know I have to do it. And it's always like a pressure on my shoulder. And you have a few of those conversations, and then suddenly you realize that, yes, it saves time. It's a good return on investment. But the big difference that it does is that difference that you have on a human being life. And to me, it's kind of switched my perception of VETSKRIBE, because it went from being a business and a challenge and something that would be useful to something that was mission driven. When you have people that say, you are changing my life for the best, that's such a great, it's life-changing for me as well. So yeah, I don't know if that's answering your question, but yes.
No, it did. It did, because I think you're coming around to the fact that it's more than just a tool for the veterinary profession, but it's a therapy as well. And so, Andrea, as a veterinarian, as a digital native, as a Gen Y, as somebody who in our conversations is a real cheerleader for the veterinary profession, somebody who 9 years out of school, if I'm not incorrect, is still happy. But from reading, from talking to colleagues, and even from talking to classmates that burnout, substance abuse, and other things are huge aspects of this profession. A lot of that is a financial side of things, whether it's salary, whether it's the cost of care, whatever the case may be. But a lot of it is just the time suck of being a veterinarian. So can you talk about how this has been beneficial to probably slowing down burnout and now you don't have to be at home writing up records or typing up records with a glass of wine. You could actually have that glass of wine without the records.
I think that inefficiencies definitely contribute to frustrations. And that it's not going to be the only problem for sure. You get these people that are, highly intelligent and perfectionists. I think that anything you can do to make your day less stressful and more streamlined is going to make your relationship with your career a little bit better. And this is just one thing. It's not the answer to everything, certainly, but it makes a huge difference. It makes a huge difference in such a major pain point, which is medical records, for most people at least. And again, it's going to be a little bit different for each different person. Is the benefit going to be seeing more appointments? Because some people, if you're production based, you're financially motivated, you want to, make that money, and that's cool. I can definitely relate to that. Seeing a few more appointments a day, having a lunch period, getting out on time, spending a little bit more time in the room with your clients so your, clients feel better taken care of. Like, those are all ways that you can kind of realize the benefits to making your medical record, your note taking, more efficient.
Well, my kids grew up and, they had swim meets and soccer games and lacrosse and all sorts of different things. And I was always stretching myself to drive through Los Angeles traffic to get from my practice home so I could be there for those things. But again, at the end of the day, there'd still be 8 to 10 charts on my desk that I was writing up. And so from that standpoint, if those 8 to 10 charts are already done, because I've only had to look and cut and paste a captured transcript of what I said, I can get out the door in a lot less time from that standpoint. But like any software, there's a learning curve and an ease of use question. Veterinarians, veterinarians are constantly looking for the easy button. So Jacinthe, if you could just talk about the feedback that you're getting about ease of use of VETSKRIBE and the feedback from the practitioners in terms of integrating it into their practices and getting buy-in from the rest of the team. I think it would be very useful to help explain how really easy these types of services can be for veterinarians.
I feel that, and based on conversation with our clients, the starting to use the technology is fairly intuitive and easy. In fact, if you know how to use Siri on your phone, you're able to start the work. So you simply take your app, you select the patient, you press record, and then if you're doing the ambient recording, you just have your regular consultation. And when you're done, you press submit. And as Andrea was saying, the time that she walks to her desk, her notes are back and everything is there. Where some of the challenge are happening is, I think, it more into the, how do I do an edit? And people they can either edit and approve on their app, but they can also come to the dashboard. Sometimes they want to add something, so you have to learn how to add that. It's not complicated, but it requires that you get familiar with the tools. So I would recommend that with any service, that you give yourself a chance, that you're patient. You just don't use it for 3 recordings and say, oh, that's not for me. just ease into it, get used to the tool, and then it will become like a second nature. And you will be able to do your edit. You will know how to do your cut and paste if you're doing the upload yourself. That's a service that we offer as well. We can do the upload for the doctors. But another area as well where I feel that there is a little bit of a learning curve is to come back to this being the narrator versus being the editor. You have to have a level of acceptance that the charting will not be done exactly in your words, in your expression. Sometimes if you use a term in the exam room, that's the term that you will find in your file, or sometimes it will be switched to a medical term. So you have to look at the big picture and really ask yourself, is all of the information that is needed for the continuity of care and that is needed to be in that patient record, is everything there? And then accept that there might be a little level of differences between the way that you would have entered the information and the way that it's now. So I say, give yourself a chance and accept that it might be slightly different, but if the end result is the same, save yourself the stress, save yourself the time, and just go with it. That would be my advice.
Like anything that you adopt that's new, there's a learning curve. And the shorter the learning curve, the more likely there is acceptance. So let's try something. If you're up for it, we're going to do a live demo where Dr. Andrea will be the doctor, I will be the client, and we will go through a brief conversation with the two of us, capturing, and this could be done in an exam room. It could also be done for a callback, for example, if you use speakerphone. And it's going to just show you, and I'm going to have Dr. Schnuelle just kind of walk you through the process as if she's walking into a room or if she's calling a client, with me being the client, of how it feels like, how it works, and how she actually does it. So Andrea, I'm going to pass it off to you, and I'm going to pretend to be a client. By the way, I hate being a client, but it's okay.
Okay, so I have it on my phone. I pull the app up. So the way I use this application, so the VETSKRIBE application, is I'll make my own appointments, which ideally would be handed off to either Jacinthe service or like a CSR or something. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And then, so I'll make the case, I'll go into the case, and if we're ambient recording, I'll toggle over to the ambient function, and then I'm ready when you are to just start recording.
Go for it.
Hi, good morning. I'm Dr. Schnuelle. I'll be helping you guys out today. What brings you in?
Hi, Dr. Schnuelle. I'm Peter Weinstein. What brings me in is my dog Bruce. He's kind of limping on his back leg, and it's bothering him. He seems to enjoy going out for walks, but he likes to limp or seems to limp a lot, and it's got me concerned.
And which hind limb is this?
It is the left hind limb.
Okay, so since he's here, I'll do a full physical exam. So we'll start at the nose here. Looks like nose and throat are looking normal. Mucous membranes are normal CRT. No dental disease that I can see. Ears and eyes look normal. Eyes are nice and bright, symmetrical, no redness, no swelling, no discharge. Ears are looking normal grossly, no swelling, no discharge, no swelling, no discharge otoscopically as well. Lymph nodes feel good. Heart and lungs sound normal. Abdomen's nice and soft. Popliteal lymph nodes look good. Back end all looks fine. I'm going to go ahead and do an orthopedic exam on this left hind limb now. I am noticing some positive cranial drawer and some tibial thrust and a moderate lameness that he's exhibiting in the exam room. So what I would be concerned about is a cruciate rupture. I would recommend radiographs today just to further evaluate things. And if we do confirm that there's cruciate disease, we'll go ahead and talk about your options going forward. Would it be okay if we go ahead and do some x-rays today? Cost would be about $350.
What is a cruciate? I've never heard that term before used.
So the cruciate is a ligament that is really important in the stability of the stifle joint, which is the knee joint.
Thank you. I appreciate that. No, I would love to get some radiographs or x-rays taken today. I'm very concerned about Bruce. He's part of the family. He sleeps in the bed. So let's get that taken care of. If your nurse can give me an estimate, that would be wonderful, so I can just take a look and see what this is all going to cost. Do you need to keep him for a while, or should I go sit in the lobby? What's best for you?
Yeah, so if you want to go and run some errands, we may need to sedate him, so it might take a little bit longer. There's a coffee shop down the road. You can go grab some lunch, you can go home, and we can call you. Whatever you're more comfortable with is totally fine with us.
All right, why don't I head home? You can give me a call when Bruce is ready, and that would be wonderful. Thank you so much for your care and concern.
All right, we'll give you a call when we have an update, okay?
Right, thank you.
Then when I leave the room, I hit stop recording. And then if I'm pretty much done with the appointment, so let's say for this appointment, we're going to be done. If I wanted to add additional recordings, like when I go back in the room or when I call Dr. Weinstein on the phone, I could put him on speaker and I could continue recording, and then the additional recordings will pile up in the case. And then at the end, I could hit submit.
Very nice. By the way, Bruce has already had both cruciates cut, but that's okay. That was very cool. So how long does it take from the time you hit stop to the time it hits the dashboard so you can cut and paste?
I think Jacinthe would probably be better to answer numbers wise, but usually, by the time I check in with the tech, if I hit submit at the end of the appointment when I walk out, I check in with the tech, I make my way back to my desk. It's usually there and ready to go.
Yeah, usually it's between 2 and 5 minutes, depending on the length or depending on how busy our server are. But sometimes it's almost instantaneous, but other time it could be up to 5 minutes. So about that.
And so obviously you'll have the radiographs taken and you'll have to put additional information into the medical records. Would you then dictate, Bruce Weinstein radiograph findings, same thing using the app, and then have that ready to go in, cut and paste it into the medical records as well?
So I suppose you could do it a variety of ways. Jacinthe, if you can just talk about, how you go in and maybe edit and add. I don't do that very often, so I'm not the best person to ask about it, but if you can maybe comment on that.
Yeah, sure. 2 ways that I'm thinking that it can be done. So either through a new recording, so you can just create a new appointment if you want, and then you record, or you can go back to the original recording. When you saw Bruce for the first time, you click the patient, and then it will open the notes. So you will see all of the notes. You just scroll down to the bottom, and then you have the 2 options. You have an option that is edit and an option that is going back and adding what you need. And then you can either record a conversation using the ambient listening, or as a doctor, you can just do your report, and then you press submit, and it will be resubmitted to our AI and come back complete with the initial consultation and whatever you added after that.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you could then use this for a follow-up phone call. You could bring and do the same thing in the exam room when you're doing the release instructions with the client or aftercare instructions with the client. I would assume you could even include notes about your referral to which specialist you're referring to that would go into the medical records. So essentially, any updates to the medical records could be if the correct term, or ambient listening captured and entered into the medical records just using the app. Is that about right?
Correct. In fact, anything that you type today, if you think about it, you can pretty much record and have us work on that. I just want to add something about the callbacks. You can put the client on speakerphone, and usually the doctors will make sure that the client is aware that he's being recorded and give permission. So you can record the entire conversation on speakerphone. Or if the pet owner is not comfortable, just having the side of the doctor, usually in ambient recording, will do a fairly good job, because usually when the doctor is calling, it's to give results or to talk about the plan. So most of the instructions are coming from the side of the doctor. So don't be concerned if you don't have permission or if you're not comfortable in recording the pet owner. It will do a fairly good job. And then you can just go back into the record and add the few information that you want to add, but that's a big time saving there as well.
So as we get close to wrapping up, I want Jacinthe to address a couple of different things looking down the road. I'm assuming, and I know that this has got to be a living, breathing organism, this app that you've got. Where do you see, or do you see something down the road where these apps will be integrated into, or app-like products will be integrated into the PIMS? Can you envision the future of veterinary medical record keeping? So what's your crystal ball say about the future of veterinary medical record keeping?
Wow, okay. I bought that crystal ball many years ago, and it's full of cracked and did not do a very good job. But what I personally think is that as the human doctor, the veterinarians will go towards the technology, and the speed of adoption of the technology will be so much faster than what we've seen in the past. Just reflecting on some of the conversation we had during this call when we were talking about paper record, and you still have some practices, and many of them are still on paper, while others have adopted like newer PIMS. And I feel that the charting will go through an evolution that will be much faster, because of the way that technology is being adopted in any segment of our life. So I feel that charting will become something that will be adopted fairly quickly. That being said, fairly quickly is always relative, because there will always be people that will be skeptical and will take a little bit of time. But I feel that the newer PIMS will find a way to integrate, so either by having their own or having companies like us that they will connect with, which I hope. And the newer PIM, like the cloud-based PIMs, will be able, or some are already starting to offer such a service. So I feel that it will become something that the veterinarians will want and will demand, and they will provide that. The older PIMs that are server-based might be a little bit more complicated. So service like our services will be really key for those clients. But the adoption should be great, because the technology will improve. Veterinarians will find their ways. The fact that it's almost instant, that the information is there and it's available for the continuity of care for the other veterinarian coming after you, being able to look at the notes and having everything there. There are so much benefits that I hope that veterinarians will adopt the technology, and that they will do that sooner than later.
So Jacinthe, you've been very patient on this call, probably wanting to share how people can get more information about your company. So here's your opportunity to kind of share a little bit about where people can get more information about the company, the name of the company, the website, et cetera.
Yeah, so the name of the company is VETSKRIBE, written with a K. So don't get confused. It's VETSKRIBE. So VETSKRIBE, and at vetskribe.com, you can see our website and pretty much all of the information. And you have different ways that you can communicate with us. You can book an appointment. We have a contact form. We also offer a free trial. So if you want to self-register, try the tool, see how it's working for you and for your doctors, that's great. So always there to help, and we're very responsive.
Thank you. Andrea, Dr. Schnuelle, let's wrap things up. Okay, you don't work for the company, obviously. You work for yourself as a relief doctor. You have a passion for the profession. You and I talked in our pre-call about, what you see as the future and how you want to help keep veterinarians in the profession. We have, unfortunately, too high a turnover of young veterinarians. And you're a parent. You have one of your own, Easton. You have another one coming. You have 2 stepchildren, and you're able to balance your life. So what do you want to tell listeners about the future of the profession, and more specifically, the future of medical record keeping in your eyes, to, keep our colleagues happy and moving forward and enjoying what they do?
Anybody that has met me probably knows I am a huge proponent of doctors doing doctor things. And that doesn't mean that I think that the other stuff is below me, but I think that there's something to be said for using your license to its full extent. Just for your business being as streamlined and as efficient as possible. The more we can get away from doing things that we don't need to and just focusing on things that require a DBM, the better. Probably the happier that you'll be. And how that changes your day-to-day might look a little bit different to different people, but my main hope is that, other people don't come to a point of a crisis in order to realize how beneficial something like voice dictation can be.
Jacinthe, thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter.
Dr. Andrea Schnuelle, thank you very much. Hey, Bruce, thank you very much. Thank you both for joining us today and talking about It Changed My Life. We actually had what was the other thought that we had for the title? Oh, let the tool do the work. Yes, this goes back to the conversation that this is a tool, it can do the work for you. It's like, let the knife do the work when you're cutting meat. Let the tool do the work when you're being a veterinarian, so you can be a veterinarian and do the 3 things that you have to do: diagnose, prescribe, and do surgery. We appreciate very much both of you being on the call today. We appreciate very much both of you being on the call today. Also want to take a moment to thank our listeners. We appreciate, maybe we need a transcription for my voice. We appreciate each and every one of you. We can't do this without you. If you like our podcast, kindly share it with your colleagues and friends on social media. Also, please don't forget to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your reviews will help other doctors and practice owners find us. Until next time, keep striving for excellence, keep making a positive impact on the lives of your patients, your pet parents, and the profession. And I wish all of you an amazing, amazing week. Thank you.